So I felt like I needed to make another video. Still setting up some things in my apartment, kind of getting organized. I'll explain why I purchased the items, why I purchased them, and how they're related to whatever, and how my sort of diet nutrition. So I'm gonna call. Right now, I'm eating a bunch of junk food. I mean, chips and salsa and shit, and a lot of quesadillas. I'm a big fan of cheese. I like cheese. Got my water, blenders, rice. Gonna keep things as simple as I can on my meals, just to focus more on my health. Sort of cleans my body. All this junk food is just for now, until my next pay period, which is in a couple of weeks, which is in about 10 days, where I'll get my payment and purchase a few more things, and then the foods that I need, so I can start eating and juicing, and start making healthy meals, correctly proportionized, and focus on other things. I got my water jug, got my blanket that came in, waiting on my desk to come in. I'm going to be mopping the floors, keep things as hygienic, clean as I can. Obviously I've been in homeless shelters where there's some of the most disgusting environments you can imagine. So being infected with HIV is actually quite difficult. A lot more harder than people think. Because, there's swimming pools. During the era when people were getting infected with HIV in the 80s, when the epidemic went absolutely crazy, everyone would have been infected. Everyone was scared. It drew everyone a pandemic. So it wasn't that easy to get infected with HIV. Unless you were using needles or there was heavy blood dosage, like it actually was able to get into your bloodstream. So that's just kind of what's going on with that. But I'm being very disinfectant, so I can sort of maybe help practice that, just to make people feel more comfortable that when they come into my apartment, even though, I could tell you how many filthy places that I've been in homeless shelters with lots of people that are not infected. And I'm always careful, and let alone that they could be giving something to me, something else that's not HIV, that's passable. But anyway, like I said, it's just better to have preparation to what is going to accommodate my lifestyle for the remaining of my life, to keep myself and others healthy. And yeah, I'm just making this video, kind of posting up, and wanted to talk about a few other things. About my mom having the identical twins identified when we went to the hospital, and her stomach was being viewed. Okay, I'm going to draw a picture. I've been doing so many different things, and I run a tutorial through my mind repeatedly over and over to figure out exactly what corners and what I was positioned and what I can remember. And so, if my mother is faking it or whatever it is, or whatever, there's not going to be any way you're going to be able to prove it. Do you know how you're going to be able to prove it? If you find the records where my mother got her sonogram done, at what hospital, and you find out what employees were there. Because the woman that did the sonogram or whatever on my mom's stomach, she was under the age of, from what I remember, 40 years old. I want to say, I think she was like in her mid to late 20s when I saw her there, and she was a brunette woman. She wasn't like really light complected, but she was about the same skin tone that I can remember about Michaela, maybe a little bit lighter than her. Someone's giving me a call. And I remember her, and she had long hair, like long hair to her back. Their same hair color was like was very beautiful. Her hair was, I want to say, very similar to how I remember a girl when I worked at Ridgeways. Her name was Kathy. She was real light complected. She had the most remarkable, beautiful hair you can imagine. Just beautiful, like Barbie doll. Anyway, but she had light colored, she was a brunette and just like silk looking hair, from what I can remember, sort of. And she was doing the sonogram. But I want to talk about something else that happened during that visit. When my mother was going, what I can remember, it's still hard for me to remember, to try to remember the thing that I want to say that she says, "Oh, you have twins. Wait, there's three? There's three." And I want to, that's what I'm kind of fumbling to think that I remember. But I want to say that I'm about 40 to 50% in the feeling of memory, somewhere with 40 to 60% that she said there's twins. Because one of the reasons what not just I photograph or memory in my mind, but also because what leads me to that is the way that my mother behaved. I mean, obviously, yeah, because Lucio picked up, still stole the child, but I'm trying to remember if there was three, because I remember if this woman said, wait, because I remember she said, wait, there's three? Yeah, I think there's three of them. So the reason I say this is because I remember my mother we were walking down the hall, and I turned around and I was walking, my mother was right to my left, and then my dad was behind me, but behind my mother, to the right. So my mother would have been here, I would have been here, and my dad was right here. And we're walking like this, and as we were walking, I turned around and I looked at my mother, and my mother was like this, like walking like doing that. Like she was like thinking and disappointed, like this is too many babies. Like another baby. Like now, I talked about that my mother was raped in Mexico. When me and my brother got raped and placed, got raped and got sent over to some, my grandpas and uncles that ended up raping and mutilating my brother, having a threesome with him. My mother, I don't remember if my mother was gone when she got raped that time, because we came home, and I remember my mother left for a period of time, and that's when I talked about when she opened the door and it was just really bright outside. She was coming in, and she looked fully blown. You could tell that she was fully blown, stimulated, like sex. And I talked about that my dad knew that it happened, this had happened. And he was sort of, I'm not sure how, I have an idea of how the male, a gay male, behaves around a heterosexual woman to put her in her place, to hold his man position. But this is only a conversation that I think that can be held by straight men. Because there's a definition to that. I understand that they can be fathers, and I do think that they can be fathers. I do think that they're very good role models and a lot better than a lot of straight men. But the idea that you're not having sex with a woman and you don't lust toward women like men do, you're not going to understand that and what that really is like. You can imagine that. You can pretend you think you understand and feel confident, but you don't. Because you don't know what it feels like to have a beautiful woman, because you're attracted to men and you want to have sex with a different sexual organ. Like I have desires to only have sex with women, beautiful vaginas and asses, and what that entails with a woman, and completely annihilate her into, there's a whole lust situation with that, okay? And you're not going to understand that. So women, they sort of have this, depending on, all women are different, but their characters, but there's a definition to the woman. She wants to feel protected, she wants to be nurtured, she wants to feel supported, so she's, depending on what kind of education she has, my mother didn't know English, my mother understands that that's her only asset. In life, in biblical times, it's shown. The reason prostitution happens is because women understand that that's the one reusable thing that they have that they can keep using to survive. And that's why prostitution was happening during biblical times, because they weren't working, they didn't have the physical ability to, and in order to please men and survive into the world, they had to give that pussy up. And that's exactly what they did. They had to give that up, and they rape or selling it for sex, because not only education, but you had no choice. Now, if you're an American and you want to be a house mom, well, your circumstances are different. That's what you want, and you have a huge range. You can go to college, you know how to read, you can get a job. You just either being lazy or you just want to do this and that. You know, it's a very different lifestyle and different understanding to that person. So as far as it goes with my mother, we're walking down the hall, and I'm going to show you how my father behaved. My father was there, 100%. 100% I was there. I don't remember Frankie being there. I do not remember Frankie being there at all for some reason. He might have, and he was maybe behind my dad. Maybe he was like behind me doing something else, and I just didn't, because all I remember seeing was my mother, the nurse, and my dad, and I was standing there. And I was looking up at the camera where the video was, where my mother was being, they put the jelly, and they put the sonogram, so you can see if the baby's healthy or what's going on. So when this happens, as I'm looking at my mother, she's kind of like this, like, and she's like, what am I gonna do? And I can tell she's like, not just like depressed, but like I gotta figure out what I gotta do. It's like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna survive. And so she starts figuring out what her options are, figuring out who's gonna take the baby, what my father says. I don't remember my father mentioning anything about it. Now, the reason I find this very suspicious, now this is going to bury my father even more, but I'm going to tell you, I don't care. I find it very hard to believe that if he was there and the twins said something, why he wouldn't have done anything. I believe, because when I walked up to the bed and my mom had her bed child, my dad did say, I thought isn't there another child? Wasn't there? No, it was just one. That makes sense. Wait a minute, that makes sense, because my mother, because I talked about this in my other video in the picture, because my mother says, oh no, just this one. Because my father, I think also, I don't know if he said something or not, because I asked my mother, and I think my dad, that's why my father could have been saying something, because my mom was holding the baby, and I said, who was that baby? Who was that baby? And she said, oh no, just big. And my dad just looked and he said, oh no, mas era uno, it was just one baby. So I don't know if my father accepted that this was a miscarriage with one of the childs that could have been in the baby. It's hard to defend him in these circumstances. He's a registered nurse, so he knew better. I think that this understanding was, he understood as my mother being a baking oven, because he was gay. So, and that's what a lot of gay men do. They sell the women, they give them fancy houses, but they only have sex with the men to shoot them a baby, and then they start a family, and they call it that family, because the gay man wants a family, and the woman doesn't have any other resources to get any money. So that's what will happen. She has to use the prostitution technique again. So, what happens is when I look at my dad's face, when we're walking down the hall, my mom's like this, like, and she's doing this, like she's like not at my dad, but like, oh, baby, like she's disappointed that this is too much. I look at my father, and this is what he does when he's walking. And he does this. He's walking, and he goes, and he's like this. And he's tilting his head up. He's tilting his head up. This is 100%. Okay? He tilts his head up. and it's like a pride of manhood, like I'm putting the woman in her place, like. And that's exactly, it was very still, and just kind of, and he's doing that. And the reason he's doing that is because he's directing, I'm going to put the woman in her place, like this is what a woman is. She gives babies. The interpretation of her having sex, the interpretation of she's a woman, identifying as a woman, that she has to dress herself up, she's a woman, she's a female, isn't interpreted by a gay man. A gay man doesn't understand those types of things. Even when straight men understand it and they ignore it, they understand it. A gay person thinks they're going to understand it, but you don't. The sexual lust is really genuine with a straight man. A gay man cannot try to mimic that. It's not the same. It's not. And so that's what I want to say. I think it's important to say this because my father was sort of doing that to her. So in this particular situation, I say this because it helps defend my mother. It helps my mom give credit to her life. And I'm running out of fuel. Something can happen to me one day. I'm 40 years old. I feel older. And I feel like I don't have too much time, much more on this earth anymore. No matter and it doesn't matter if I eat healthy. Like, I feel like maybe my organs, inside the internal organs, have been through too much torment, too much tearing and bullshit. That you can't fix it with medication, and you're not gonna fix it with eating the best of healthy foods. It's not gonna work. The reason I think this, and I know this, is because I know that I had aplastic anemia when I was in high school football and middle school, and I was bleeding out of my nose. And I remember someone telling me, "You look really pale," and I remember having trouble breathing, and I couldn't do the cardio. And I know that I came in contact with this aplastic anemia at some point when I believe somewhere in elementary school. There was something that fucked me up. I don't know what it was. There was something, some poison, I believe, that had triggered it, that caused the blood to go up or down and down, down, but staying at a moderate. I'm 5'11" with a fucking thick ass beard, and if you think my hair is full now, you should have seen what it would look like when I was fucking, 12 years old. I would go get a haircut, and every barber I'd ever been to told me that. He goes, "You have the thickest hair I have ever come across." They would be cutting me, giving me a fade, and it was like sandpaper. It was like sandpaper because the hair follicle was very thick. Like the actual hair that you have, that it's rooted, where you have a hair follicle and the hair that grows is fucking thick as a motherfucker. And so when you cut the hair, and then that's why it feels like sandpaper. Most people don't have that. It's usually just through genetics. People say, "Oh, you got thick hair." No, you have a lot of hair, but you also have thick hair. And you also can have both, where there's thick and then there's a lot of hair of that. So I just know that being 5'11", 5'10 and a half, 5'11 with shoes on, working out, cardio, skinny, was very active, is all the signs of a very good genetics. It's just like hyperness, testosterone, how women and young boys start developing sperm and start growing breasts and start getting sexually active at younger ages because of genetics. So when I say these things, I think that it's important for me to say these things that I just know. I remember the coach putting me out of the game because I looked like I was a puny, weak motherfucker, and I remember having so much trouble breathing. And I remember the Coach Burns, Coach Sullivan. I was, who I remember being on the football field with. I don't know if they could remember or notice how skinny I was, but they could have noticed that how light complected my face looked, or I looked just really drowsy. But you confuse the fact that somebody's skinny to, oh, that's why they're drowsy. Somebody can be skinny, very athletic, but someone can be skinny and then very drowsy because of a disease, and you just relate it to that. Oh, it's just because he's skinny, and that's what weak is, and it's not. So that's what I think it's important for me to say. You can't go many years in life using drugs the way that I did also when I was 15, 16. I had a transplant. I'm 40 years old. I put my body, internal organs. Your internal organs isn't a muscle. Your internal organs isn't a muscle that you go to a gym and you eat a bunch of steak dinners and you get buff. It is not that. It's tissue. Tissue does not repair itself, to my knowledge and experience, the way muscle does. You can tear muscles, you can have these whatever fucked up shit, but your tissue, your organs, the blood vessels you have that is going to your aorta and all that shit that's pumping blood on all your lungs, the esophagus, that's tissue that you can't necessarily work that muscle out and make it stronger. That's usually minerals and ingredients to help repair those types of things. Those are very hard to repair because it's very tedious to how the organ actually is. It's more lethal. You need your organs. You can do without muscle, but you need organs to work as best as you can. You see people with no muscle definition in wheelchairs, and you have people like Christopher Hawkins, perfect example. This guy looked like a toothpick for 40 fucking years, but look at his organs. They work beautifully, and he could think beautifully, because the tissue in his organs were very strong and healthy and very fluid and very effective to keep him alive, even though he was like a toothpick. You can build that muscle, but it can go away, but your organs is a very different situation. So it's very dangerous, I think, situation, and I think it's important to add the credit to something religiously and accept things in the most best of ways. I believe, in my opinion, I have a better understanding than a lot of people do. This isn't a free ticket, just the way that I was raised by my mom and dad, and I think that it's just a better understanding. I'm not a freeloader. My kindness isn't represented as a weakness. If I don't have money to give you, then I'll give you kindness, and very respectful and a lot of trust that you won't ever have with people. And it's something that's very common. It's something I was used as a giving mechanism, because I didn't much to share. People share their laughter, they're good jokers, they can joke a lot, or someone has a lot of video games, or, someone has connection to drugs, at the time, who can get us weed anytime we want. So I had something to offer, so I think it's important for me to understand that. So, I'm not looking to pull a fast one on any of this situation, but when other people are raised with freeloading shit and they stole a bunch of money, they taught that behavior to their kids, and then they retaliate against me for it, and they don't understand the magnitude of what I was giving up and what I already lost, and then it's just regeneration again. I could go on with this. How much victory it is to how I live my life isn't going to change the fact that it's still a freeloading game, and they're going to get away with it. I cannot do anything about my mother's intelligence and who did this to her. The president directly, Barack Obama and George Bush, did not do anything but allow the harm to continue and allow the pigs to survive. It's a white supremacy world. They know how to pick up a firearm and shoot it and put the people down. I'm not talking like literally, but you know what I mean. Lay down the hammer. They don't. And the portion of me that believes, that gives me pardons them, And mass movements and political power, there's things that you just can't do even if you want to. Even if the President Barack Obama said, shoot that fucking Ken Cooper and Sarah Cooper motherfucker, you think you're gonna rape that bitch after I fucking had 2,000 people fucking die coming out of a World Trade Center, over 200 people jumped to their fucking death? You think you wanna fuck with this? You know, you're gonna have, you could send dummies to the fucking armed fields, and you think they're smart, and that's what you ordered, but it was the actions of what these people did on the field that fucked everything up, and they did it out of their own intention, and you couldn't control it. It's not going to happen. You know, Madison Cooper, it's not going to change. You got the whites, the superiors in Hollywood, the entertainment that's white, and the entertainment that's black. Mexican has no representation and very little representation in any type of, and so you learn, at least I learned what I'm allowed to get in and what I'm not, and where that stance is, and you only have one shot in life. I was that person. World Trade Center collapses, my dad gets a phone call. I met Michael Jackson when I was 5 years old, the biggest pop star. I think if they had wanted to, they knew what to do, but I don't want to get in conspiracy. I'm not going to. I believe that this situation is probably more of a spiritual holy thing between me and my mother and the immediate family of how tragedy happens, because there was no safety net at all. These are geniuses. You gave these motherfuckers whatever they fucking wanted to the wrong people, and you just wanted to freeload because they were white. This was not in any kind of way. You just wanted to feel sorry, and they built their own army. The way that my mother and my immediate family paid for them, or how we lived, was 10 times better. You don't understand that when you're working for a living, 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day at a fucking dead-end job trying to pay your mortgage, these motherfuckers were house sitting for garbage shit. You're sitting comfortably trying to collect and saying you did something in your fucking life. You didn't do a goddamn fucking thing. You work 8-10 hours in a fucking field and you're trying to pay a fucking mortgage, and you're fucking raising 3 kids, dumping one dead body over here, surrendering one child over here, dealing with a fucking drunk that needs to be babysitted. What the fuck do you think, that's a mentality that is so dangerous, because that person is a working mule. Then people like Ken Cooper and Sarah Cooper used it for Madison and for Kenneth, purposely for Kenneth and all them motherfuckers. I could go on with complaining. It's not going to change anything. I have to leave it to holy understanding of how lessons are learned, because it's at a magnitude of so unfairness. It is just like, you can't, there's not going to be any justice. You need to let go. Let go. There's not going to be, because God's going to have to deal with it. The people that are in charge are not going to want to do anything about it. They're not. And they didn't. And they're going to keep lying to say that they did, when this could have been as powerful and as extravagant as a poor Mexican village lady as my mother, who had been a list of horrific things. Everyone goes through bad things. But now this has become someone else's money, and I don't get anything. So, like I said, I think it's important for me to make these videos just because it adds the equity. I'm terrorized right now, just thinking of my brother Frankie. If I got raped at 5 years old, and Frankie was fucking 9 years old at 8 years old when we got raped at my uncle's house, when my grandpa died, what makes you think that from the age of 4 years old to 9 years old that Frankie didn't experience some sort of sexual molestation at some point there? I wasn't even in the picture. That doesn't bring the count to 10. Let's just count the other 2 that I said is high probability. That's 12 before, from the age, from what I was alive and being Frankie's brother to he was 14 years old. Wait a minute. The count isn't 12 if it's confirmed. The count could be higher than that, and no one knows about it. because you're gonna get Kenneth at the radio station for Ken Cooper and Madison and the gays and the whites, and did it for Michael Jackson and the hip hop and the police department and Madison the white, because that's all it is. It's like, it's crazy. It's like fucking crazy. A fucking child. Frankie's this fucking big. He's being plumbered by a 250-pound fucking guy. I watch him go like fucking like. And if you've ever been hit in your stomach when you're not ready for it, like fuck, you're not ready. I've been hit in the stomach before, and when I wasn't even looking, and I could tell. I mean, it's you think something ruptured in your stomach. I think this is how Harry Houdini ended up dying. But I wanted to say this because they knew. Ken and Sarah Cooper knew about this. The police department knew about this. The fire department knew about this. Multiple people knew about this. But I'm going to make sure who's stupid and who's smart. Now, getting attitudes, being aggressive, understanding that this voyage is now came to an end. What do we do moving forward? I believe that Frankie is not okay. I think Frankie's in a nursing home. I think they're separating and ingeniously doing this. Regardless of how truthful I am, in the stance of someone's position, you don't know the truth. You also have to dissect it in what perception, the definition of perception is, and what people's motives are. So there has to be undercover. There has to be situations. Ken and Sarah Cooper knew this. I mean, they're running a full-blown suicide mission. And Sarah Cooper, they knew that they have to now point the finger right back at them in order to protect Madison and Kenneth and Kim and Michelle, so that they can keep pivoting. Because then I picked up the shit and they killed me. So this is at a masterminded level that whoever did this to my mother did it with those intentions, because they trusted Ken Cooper, and that's what the whole intention was from the very beginning. The president knew this, and not only got betrayed, didn't want to continue doing anything. And I just don't think in this city he can think he just got overthrown in power. And it's not being hateful to that particular type of position. It's just he did. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? You know, you point your finger. You did this. You give demands. You know, there's 10 people running around and gets the ass fucked. So it's not going to change. I think it's important. If Miguel is perfectly healthy and meant every way, whatever he's pretending, he'll be able to tell you if I got punched or not. I do remember that very distinctly, crouching down when I saw Frankie and just doing this, like, you know, and I remember looking and I stood still, like just doing that, like, because I was watching them fight, and Frankie saying, like, get off of me, no, get off of me, no, get off of me. And as soon as Frank goes, BAM! And he hit him like he just, I mean, he like falls to the fucking ground. And he's like, and he's like doing that, like on the floor. And Miguel, when I watched him do it, he goes like this, and he goes, boom! And he goes like that, like boom! Like kiss him. So I wanted to say before Ken Cooper, detective locking people up in prison for 30 years, I'm going to explain this method now for my beautiful Madison. See who picks up more shit from Kenneth and Kenneth 50 Cent on Hip Hop Station. So anyway, I do not believe that Frankie is okay. I believe that something happened, and in order to extract these particular type of circumstances, you have to completely disassociate the situation. Okay? You can see my starting to form tits because I haven't been working out. I'm getting old. Feel sloppy, but anyway, I think it's important because I think it's important for me to be able to say this, because there's no way. You're telling me that there's 12 guys that raped my brother. All of them that gave him oral sex, gave anal penetration. All of them. I have to look at it again. All of them, and I confirmed all of them. If the 2, that would make it 12. If they gave him anal penetration, that's 2. Let's just say you count oral sex and anal penetration as rape. Then that's 12. Because there was a guy that said, okay, now go get you some. That was Bill's joint, Ed's joint, the actual Ed, the owner. And then you could probably find out through his relatives if that was the case where he confessed. As far as Skivel, guy used to play basketball, whether he gave Frankie a mint or a piece of candy, that would make it 12 if he gave anal penetration or maybe just oral sex. You want to consider that as rape? And I remember how Frankie came out of that house. When Frankie went into that house, you know what Frankie told me? Frankie said, oh yeah, it looked really cool. He kept on saying, oh, it looked really cool in there. Yeah, and he kept on saying, oh, it looked really cool in there. He had a bunch of plants, and he was like, oh man, he had a lot of cool stuff in there. He had a lot of plants, like kind of like a, and that's what he said he did. But Frankie never behaved this way. We didn't even know this fucking guy. We didn't even know him. He shouldn't have been behaving this way. His erratic behavior of what he thinks is cool is so like out of the blue. It's like out of the fucking blue expression. And he's like deep, you can almost, and I'm looking at him like he looks like he's deeply hiding something. Because he stumbles and runs out like outside like he's trying to hide something. As they both quickly open and exit out the front door when I was walking home from school. Like very quickly. Like it looked like they were hiding, and he like took a very quick and then quickly trying to like, and you could see how Frankie looked back for 1 second and how he was holding a screen door, and he looks at Frankie like he's trying to correct him. Like, you know how like when you're trying to hide something when you're with your girlfriend and something embarrassing someone's watching, or you need help something between you two, and you give each other eye contact and you're like, you know, but you don't look necessarily to the right. You're like dominating or controlling the situation. That's what he was doing to Frankie. And all of a sudden I see this sort of slow motion expression, and then he starts walking next to me, or walks across the grass, and we start walking, and he has like a mint, like a candy, like he gave him or some shit. And I noticed that there's a funny smell. I remember like a fecal smell in his mouth, or like a anal cavity smell in his mouth. There was something smelt that it wasn't as powerful as the times I knew that he got raped. It wasn't like that. Maybe because we were outside and he was walking with a drift, the wind would have been blowing that smell off of him, so I would have only gotten small drifts of it. But that's what I think it had happened. So in this particular type of situation, that would confirm it to 12. There's no way. There had to have been more. There had to have been more. From the age of 5 years, I don't even know how old it is, and when a gay man decides, or, you know, straight men can tell you this, you know, they can tell you, you know, they can, depending on how large the penis is, whether they can insert it into a 4 or 5 year old girl without killing them and knowing it because they don't want to get caught. Now, I'm not a professional in this field. There is some gruesome shit out there that these people, whoever does that for a living, is some hardcore shit. Because they have to see the actual everything. But I think it's important for me to say this because from when I was 5 years old and got penetrated, I can express this. It's like this, like your lips, like it feels like this on your colon, and it's like smudged lips, and it burns like a motherfucker, and it hurts, and it feels like something fucked you in your ass, and you feel violated. But I think it's important for me to say this because when Frankie's very deeply hiding this. When he comes out of that house, at Skivel's house, he's very, very deeply hiding this, like in a way that the people that are doing this are injecting something into his eyes, into his being, that is total, like, obedience. Total, if so many people had done this, that this is normal life. You only understand this. This is normal life. This is, you think yourself, no, this is normal life. This is gay community normal life. This is normal life. So, the reason it's frightening to me, because I talked about Frankie doing this whenever he got raped at my uncle's, by Miguel. He didn't do it very so much. The only time that I'd ever seen Frankie say thank you to me, and I didn't understand what the fuck he was saying to me, was when we were at Dato's house, Abraham's. And I think I saw him in Washington, D.C. I don't know if I was him or not. I think he got locked up in prison. I think he went to prison. He used to be a boxer. I know he was a boxer in high school, and I was going to R.L. Turner at the time. I used to hang around with him and there were two tall, big-ass dudes, and I used to hang around with them, and they were boxers, and he used to tell me, oh, man, you look like a fucking boxer. You look like you can throw down. What's up, man? You think you can fight? And he was the coolest guy. Tato, we used to call him Tato. I don't even know his name, but Frankie was really good friends with him, and I was good friends with Abraham. Anyway, when we were at that house as a kid, and I talked about that, this guy said he had a gun, and Frankie was thrown in the bathroom for a quick moment. That was the only time when I looked in the back seat and Frankie was kind of showing some fear in his eyes. He goes, yeah, I just want to say, thank you, Hector, for saving my life. It's the only time he had ever said that. I don't know what this guy had done that put him more on edge. I don't know, maybe it was a different day. When Bill raped him, it wasn't like thank you. It was just like, I got to deal with it. This is what I have to do, and this is what I have to deal with. This behavior is so erratically intense. I know he doesn't like it. But so many people have done this to him that he can't, and unless if I'm going to survive, I'm going to be alive in this world, this is the only understanding I'm going to have. You're going to get the Ken Cooper and Sarah Cooper experience for the angel work for the church they built. Anyway, for Kenneth and Madison, I'm going to have to do what I'm going to have to do to Frankie and my mother, that it's like dropping an atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki and just calling it, I just have to do it. And what I mean doing is accepting that I should not fight for them anymore. And accept the way that it is, and go to Frankie's, give him a hug and ear and say, don't worry, Ken Cooper and Sarah Cooper said Jesus Christ built the church for you. Jesus Christ is going to do it for you. He take care of you, you see. Oh, I see in the afterlife in angel land. Madison, what is her name? Miranda, or, she'll meet you on the other side of Jesus Christ. You see how love works. That's going to be very difficult for me. That's going to be a stab in the heart. That's going to be, goddamn, that's talking to the devil right there. I'm going to have to do it. Because I'm not going to have the choice of build up beef. There was no justice. Because to me, it's not just to me, it's a hate crime. Whoever's dealing with this aren't straight people, majority of them, and they're going to want to play the race card as well. This is too intense. This is a hate crime when it came to who's going to get what, who's going to get famous. So, and who's going to pass it down to whose kid and who's not. And what secrets you don't want anyone else to know for the police department and detective work. Because those motherfuckers did die in prison 30 years, 40 years, 20 years, 10 years, just doing police work for Keynote, 97 on the beat, for hip-hop, for head crack, talking about, for 50 Cent, because 50 Cent did actually get to hang out with, Keynote, head crack, saying get down with the niggas for the police department, forgiveness time. So anyway, that's what I think. I think Frankie is in a nursing home, and that's it. So I'm being prepared for this. I'm being prepared that was the existence of his life. That's my perception and idea as of lately. I don't think up until any of this was, I think he was just being taken away from me or taken away from my family because my circumstances, whatever's going on. Because you're trying to clean up and you can't. Do I think it's Frankie that I spoke to over the phone? Yeah. But I think it was a recording device. I think it was an electronic device to keep everyone safe. He's fine. Me jolting into a situation is looking like I could scramble because you don't know the situation, but you do know that Ken and Sarah Cooper are registered nurses and registered police officers, and you're going to try to protect them and at least keep Madison safe. It is a white supremacy world. I come to wetback family members. I'm not American as much as somebody else is an American. Regardless, I was born here and took care of an American veteran. Isn't going to change anything. They know how to be able to lay down the hammer to circumstances. They know to be able to put the circumstances to in correct fashion, and you have to. You got white guys, you got black guys, you got Chinese, you got Mexicans and Latins sitting in prison for 30, 40 years that have done awful fucking things, and none of these motherfuckers that did this to my brother went to prison for it. Some of them died, and they sat in a 3-bedroom house, and they decided to clean up and continue doing that. While I was nearly eating out of trash cans and couldn't get a place to live. And I'm a cancer patient. And it doesn't going to change anything. I talked about this before. I've made some other videos on my career choices and my influences, but that's going to be in another video. But in my circumstances, when it comes to the situation, you're not gonna win. This is you have to know when to fold the cards. You have to know that this is the only life that, the way that Frankie was being raped. This is the only life I get, and it's the only life I'm going to understand until I die. There is no way, I don't care if Frankie actually did go and register the Marines. I don't care if Frankie actually did this and this. You cannot have a healthy mind. You're not. There's no fucking way. I'm telling you, I was there with him. This mind is so... Sarah and Ken, I would have never done this to Frankie. I would have not done this to Frankie. I'm smarter and better, and it's not looking at an evaluation. How well can I evaluate myself now to then say what it was really then? No, it's exactly what it was really then. You don't understand that out of all these rapes, no one is telling me what this smell is. When I'm 4 years old and I'm being raped, he didn't even penetrate me that I remember because I was too tight and I was too small. And then that's when Frankie was pulling my pants down, and I talked about this, and me and him got into a brawl-out fight, hardcore fight in the living room, and I was trying to wake him up. And I remember even we were fighting in the room, and we're near the closet, and I was fighting him, and I didn't want to punch him in the face. I was trying to wake him up, and I remember just doing this, and I remember just hitting him on his shoulder, to get away, wake up, because I was fighting because he was completely demonic possessed, to crazy shit. It's hard for me to see a child. I don't know how to express a child go from 0 to 100 like that, because it was so unusual. This is not like a temper tantrum. This is a sexual predator, and he's going from being a kid to submitted completely to the sexual predator to then do this to your brother. And I talked about this because I think it's important. When I'm 5 years old and I walk into Mexico, and I walk in there and it looks like, and I'm from a far distance. I'm from here, it's from here 10 yards into the room, because the room's pretty far deep into the room when I walk into Mexico, and it looks like Frankie with his pants down. He's in a doggy position. One guy's putting his penis in his mouth, and the other guy was penetrating him, which the guy, grandpa that was hung himself, and the uncle that was raping him, and it smelt in there. And I remember just looking, I got scared, and I thought they were doing something special or doing something weird. But it was so predatorial that when we walk away, I didn't know what to do, because I don't think, at this time, it's just me and Frankie that are there. And it was weird because they kept on looking, being on the lookout to see who was looking. And I talked about that I had to give oral sex to this one guy, and I remember the first thing that my mom's uncle said to my brother, "No, este sí le gusta, sí, este sí le gusta." And he said, which translates in English means, "No, this one really likes it, no, see?" And I'm 5 years old, and he goes, "Here, put this in your mouth." And so when he does this, I don't understand, because like Frankie's sort of in tears, and Frankie is like, when I'm looking at Frankie and I'm looking at his face, he is so completely submitted to this behavior that at this point he hasn't been sexually raped yet. He hasn't been penetrated. It wasn't until a later few days later that whenever we were left there alone, that's when it happened. Boncho will be able to tell you much of the details when it did happen. And it's crazy because, on the side note, before I get into more detail of that, I was watching Boncho's son box, and he moved just like him. He moves just like, when he's sparring in circles, he moved just like him. When he put me down and he was on his shoulders, he said, "Look, no te sustas, no te sustas. Look," and he said that, "No te sustas, mira, no te sustas." And he put me down, and he backed up, and he started running. He sort of circled, and he goes, and he started sort of hopping, and he starts like, it looked very beautiful in the way that he was sparring, like massive rhythm, like he had bounce and rhythm to what he was doing. And I said, "No, mira, no te sustas," and he's, "Don't get scared." See? And so then he put me back on his shoulders, and he was jogging. He was running, and he liked jogging. And that's when we went to the volleyball place, and I talked about we're up at the top chairs, and we went to go see like a high school volleyball game. But he got us away. So anyway, so in this particular situation, there's no conversation that what's happened. My dad can't do anything about this situation. There's no fight. There's nothing. So what happens with this situation? Frankie doesn't identify no rape going on. When Esquivel happens, there's no identification. When Miguel happens, I'm 5 to 4 years old. This guy's grooming me for the next 10 years. That's why I'm not being able to say anything. Remember church? Remember President Barack Obama and George Bush? Remember Jesus Christ? No, it's for Ken and Sarah Cooper, because remember they came over. Remember the police officers showed up? They showed Frankie, "Oh, guess what? Remember you're trying to look for help? Your help's right there. They're not doing anything about it." Because Ken Cooper was there in his police officer outfit. That's right. Because what does that say when Frankie sees a police officer there and he doesn't like what this guy had done? Aren't you supposed to be doing something? You're a relative? "Oh, I didn't know. I was just being Ken Cooper." How much can you control? You can control a brand new hip-hop record found around the world with Keynote 97 on the beat with Head Crack, you know, I'm talking about 50 Cent, you know what I'm saying? Black community niggas, you know what I'm talking about? And it's not their fault. It's not the black community's fault. It's not. He's ultimately using his white supremacy, claiming he's Mexican and to give him some colored credit, and then going into a radio station so he can get a hip-hop record. And he did. Because guess who's getting an ass fucking, and guess who the police officer is? And that's what happened. So anyway, I wanted to make a video. No better situation than that's what's going to happen. And even if you don't put Sarah and Ken near my mother with forgiveness, and then we just all gather up for a little bit and leave, is it going to change? My mother, my family, even were working mules and pigs for that family and their record deals and their white skin. That's what it was. My mother was a guinea pig who was a fucking first grade education and is horse fucked and pigged to whatever his liking was. There was no protection. You have Michael Jackson, President Barack Obama, the World Trade Center isn't going to change a goddamn fucking thing. What Frankie dealt with. That house you gave them is covered in blood, and now you want to make gay community Julian and his twins, and Marco and his gay twin, to say, "Oh, then guess who's gay and who's going to win for the fight again?" Well, my mom was only straight kid. Oh, but my mom was a bisexual. She had sex with a gay man. You don't understand how imprisonment that really is. Oh, but my dad's the first American nurse, so So, I don't know. I'm too old. I fucking cannot do anything but surrender and to let go. And that's the most beautiful thing that's ever going to happen, because my mom's already, it's too late. It's too late. There's no way Frankie does not have a good state of mind. Okay, even if he's healthy, if he was healthy and he's not sitting in a nursing home somewhere, he is not going to be able to make good decisions on the fact that he's the head leader of making decisions when my dad commits suicide, when my dad dies. Do you know me and Frankie were going at it whenever my dad died? And Michael Palomo, Joe Palomo, was it Joe or whatever his fucking name is? Do you know in New York where the World Trade Center happened, Robert Palomo, they all knew about this shit? Why the fuck do you think I'm gonna go against my brother I'm living with and I'm fucking pissed off? I'm saying nobody cares, alright? These fucking son of a bitches don't want to tell me a goddamn fucking thing. What do you think they want to go and tell Sarah and the police department in? Huh? Oh, they're the police department. Remember, they're the police department. They're actually getting inside information with the police department. And the detective work. Remember what work King Cooper does. You can't ruin his career like you're going to ruin George Bush's and Barack Obama's career as a president. This ain't going to happen. You think what you want to think. No better way than forgiveness, to let go, because at the magnitude there was nothing. I have to fetch off the begging pity. It's going to take me quite a while to get used to this. My own apartment, like the walls here are mine. I got to take care of these walls. I got to take care of the furniture. I got to take care of everything. I got to make sure to keep everything clean. I got to take care of myself to help move forward, to help have a mentality that helps me in that type of mindset where I'm moving forward. The emotional drag will have to alleviate that away from Frankie, because you're going to give their DJ careers to them. It's going to be playing 100. If it's not me, then it was for Taylor Swift. And if it's not for that white skin, white hair, whatever, it's not going to change any of those things. The time that they got and the time that you devoured, they became their fucking platform at the literally blood cost of my family. And if you didn't want to blame us for it, then you didn't blame it on the Marines for fucking dying and shedding their blood for you. And then you claim because it was the black niggas, and you just keep pointing the finger at all this bullshit. So that's my ideas of it. And I was also one other idea I want to think of. I don't know if this girl Sadaya Khan, I forgot her name. What happens if she's related to Frankie? Could she be related to Frankie? And it looks like I have breasts or some shit. Could it be that Frankie could be related to some Saudi peoples or some Saudi Arabian people or some people from the Middle East I don't know about? And could be related to her? Like distant, staunch relatives? That's why they put her on? Could it be? Nah, I don't think so. Could it be that person's related to Frankie and I don't even know? Maybe. I think it could. Because I don't know who Frankie's biological father is. Nobody does. Nobody knows. I don't have it. I know my mom knew when she got with my dad, she had to get pregnant quick. And she wasn't working. So who did she get pregnant by? Who did my mother get pregnant by? Because when my mom moved into the house, into that house with my dad, she was not pregnant. My dad used to tell me the story when he married her. My dad told me that when my dad told me that when my mom and him got married, he carried my mom through the door in her arms like an old classic style of marriage, like old-fashioned American life. You marry your wife and you pick her up in your arms and you bring her in and you screw the hell out of your girl and give her all the honeymoon orgasm that she's supposed to have as a couple and married couple. That's what happened, but they didn't tell me this. He didn't tell me the sex, anything. He told me when my mom moving in, she wasn't pregnant. He said that it took. He told me, and I want to say he did this. I want to say, she ended up getting pregnant about 3 or 4 months, 6 months after being here. My mom didn't have a job. Did someone break into the house? Did someone just go in there and rape my mother? She didn't have education. How did she get a job? She couldn't have. My mom was a house, so someone in that neighborhood could have raped my mother. Someone could have broken into that home. Unless my mom got pregnant before she married my dad before she moved into the house? Because my mom told me that she moved into the house and like 3-4 months later they got married. And Michael was still living there. So they weren't married. So what happened? Is it possible that my mom, whoever it was rape for sure. My mom was really young. Where did this guy come from? I don't think my mom had a job. Whoever it was, they did the same thing what they did in Mexico and probably grabbed her and threw her in a room and raped her. You make a choice. You make the choices, so I'm not the professional. I gotta get to the gym and grow tits.